Sophia Nelson. She is an award-winning author, journalist, and university scholar and adjunct professor in Virginia. Nelson is a USA Today columnist and contributing editor to thegrio.com, as well as a contributor to the Washington Post. You can see her regularly on MSNBC, CNN, and PBS as a legal and political analyst. She was most recently a scholar in residence and adjunct professor in the Department of Philosophy and Religion at Christopher Newport University. She is the former investigative counsel to the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Oversight and Reform and senior counsel with the international law firm of Holland and Knight, LLP. She is the author of 3 other nonfiction books, Black Women Redefined, The Woman Code, and E Pluribus One. I'd like to welcome my dear friend, Sophia Nelson.
First, let me say thank you to the Dulles Chamber of Commerce. It is my first time being with you, and I love it. This is a great room. Thank you to your president. Thank you to Suzanne for thinking of me and for having me here with you this afternoon. I can't think of a more important topic in this time we're living in than how we take care of our mental health and wellness and take care of one another in the workplace. So I'm not going to give you any speeches. I'm not going to go through any data. I'm going to talk about you for a moment, and I'm going to give you some takeaways, and then the message is going to be yours. One of the first things I want to do as I start is I want to repeat back something I heard because it resonated with me, and it probably resonated with all of you too. And I believe it was Lori that said it, and she said, people aren't kind to one another anymore. Did you hear her say that? That's true. And I'll tell you what, firsthand experience with it this weekend, actually every day of my life as a columnist, as a political pundit, my Twitter feed is awful all the time. And so is Facebook, and so is Instagram. The nastiness that people spew at you is simply stunning. I had a piece in the Washington Post this weekend, Sunday. Some of you probably read it. It was in the print section, in the opinion section. And I like to be a disruptor. It's kind of what I do. And I like to push the envelope. I like to challenge us to rise higher, to do better, including myself. And I had a piece talking about the workplace and really the treatment of marginalized groups, focusing on African Americans, and how there's a difference sometimes in the consequences, if you will, of how people are treated in their careers when they make mistakes or they get things wrong, because we're human beings first. And when you go to the comments section, wow, the stuff that people say with a picture by their name and where they work by their name is simply jaw-dropping. Now, usually those people are pretty innocuous, right? Because they're not visible on big platforms, so they usually get away with it 99% of the time. But I start with this to say that I understand that we're living in a time now where one of the things that really pushed me to write my most recent book, which is Be the One You Need, 21 Life Lessons I Learned While Taking Care of Everyone But Me. Now, a lot of you can relate to that subtitle, a lot. But COVID changed everything. And I believe it set some things in a positive direction, and it set some things in a really negative direction about how we engage and how we're speaking to one another and how we're talking to one another. And nowhere is that more evident than on social media. If you have teens on social media, I want to advise you to check out what they're doing and try to limit it, because it's bad. It's bad when you're a full-grown adult in charge of yourself. Some of the things people tell me they want to kill me. I mean, they tell me they want to do other kind of vile things. They send nasty letters to your house now because they can find you on Google Earth very easily, right? We're living in law enforcement's in a room. And by the way, I want to give them another round of applause for being here, because thank you. Nobody deals with crazy more than the 3 of you, right? Right? Nobody deals with it more. And so I kind of want to open with this, just setting the table for you about where we are. Because where we are post-COVID, working through COVID still, because it's still not gone. How How many people in the room got COVID during the, well, almost all of us, a lot of us. Those of you who didn't get it, you're aliens, I'm convinced that something's wrong with your DNA, right? But on a serious note, something is amiss. Look, I'm in my 50s. I'm old enough to remember when we didn't have social media. We had typewriters. I took typing class in high school. Yes, I'm dating myself. And, you know, the good old 80s and 90s, I tell you what, I wish, right? But we were not, I'm sure that there was incivility and disrespect and all those things. But they weren't amplified the way they are now, and they weren't as present in our lives the way they are now because we've got these devices. And as was being talked about, we're on call 24/7 now. We never put the phones down. We never turn the devices off. We're manic. We're working. We don't sleep. We're like zombies in many cases. Yeah, I'm talking about you. And the reality is that something has changed and shifted. And what it's done to all of us, and men, this is important for you too, because as someone said earlier, a lot of times people think of self-care and wellness as a woman's issue. That's crap. Self-care and wellness is a human being issue. Let me tell you what self-care is not. Self-care is not a day at the beach or the spa or the pedicure. That's respite. That's giving yourself a little bit of quiet enjoyment. It's maintenance. It's kind of taking care of you a little bit. Self-care is a lot deeper than that. And one of the challenges of our time, what the devices have done, Microsoft has an amazing study that came out a couple years ago about the human attention span. Back when I graduated high school in 1985, I know I look good. I don't look that old. Anyway, back when I graduated high school in 1985, the human attention span was 1 minute and 30 seconds. Anybody want to give me a guess what it is in the year 2022? Who said 20 seconds? It's 10. Think about that for a moment. And why is that? The devices, and if you got kids, you know what I'm talking about, right? They created a whole new language, TBH, LOL, LMFA, DWVD, I don't know. But the point is that they invented a new way to talk, and it literally has rewired our brains. I'm going somewhere with this, stick with me. Because I want to set the table for you to understand what's going on with you and why you look in the mirror and go, what the hell's wrong with me? Why can't I sleep when I'm doing? Wrong question. The right question, Suzanne, from a trauma-based, and all of us, what I'm trying to say, every day is experiencing trauma in ways that we didn't before. You listen to the ladies talk who were up here, and give them another round of applause because it's not easy to stand up and talk about your stuff and to share, right? And you did, and that's brave. But if you listen, I was saying this to myself. I said, well, damn, are we just crazy now? Is something wrong with us? No, we talk about it now. We talk about it now. I read a great book, again, that inspired me to write my last book by Oprah and Dr. Bruce Perry. It's called What Happened to You. I highly recommend you get it and read it because it's all about trauma. And it's all about your brain's response to trauma. And the trauma that starts as childhood and goes all the way through the rest of your life, and how resilience is important to how you deal with trauma. But what happened to you is a question that changes everything when you stop asking what's wrong with me and you ask what happened to me. Okay? So again, I'm setting the table for the 5 nuggets I'm going to give you from my new book about self-care, and I'm going to do this a little bit differently as it applies to the workplace and you being entrepreneurs, business leaders, you know, community leaders, etc. But I think it's important to get back to this, what self-care is not first. A day at the beach, like I said, doing your nails, all that, that's not self-care, that's really respite. Self-care is when you set healthy boundaries and you put you first. Now, mothers in the room are going to grimace at me and go, I can't possibly put myself first because I have children, I have a marriage, I have maybe parents who are aging. Let me stop you there for a minute. And again, men, this applies to you too. What does the stewardess say every time we get on the airplane? Why should she do that? Say it louder. So she tells you to put your mask on first every time you get on a plane, as if you haven't heard it 100 other times. But they do that for a reason, because it's a life-saving measure. And I'm telling you right now that self-care is not the yoga studio, or it's not some Zen kind of thing that you do when you feel like it. Self-care is something you should do every single day of your life. Self-care is mandatory. It is not optional. Putting on your life mask first is a great metaphor for living. Because when Sophia's cup is full, Sophia has more to pour out. When Sophia is drained and exhausted and sleepy, she's not a nice person, and neither are you. And so it's a simple thing of, if I take care of me first and I know what's going on with me first, and the 3 questions that I want you to begin to ask yourself, if not every day of your life in some form or fashion, at least some of the time. And when the book came out in June and I was all over television on the morning shows, Brianna Keeler of CNN was hilarious, because she was like obsessed with these 3 questions, and she was saying them on air, and she was putting them on Twitter because she was struggling with them, because they're hard, but they're real. The 3 questions you should ask yourself often: what do I want? What's the last time you asked yourself, what do you want? Ladies in particular, guys are better at this than us. You are, own it. Because we've empowered you to be so, because the way our culture is, the way our socialization is, women are caretakers and nurturers. Even when we're CEOs, even when we're vice president of the United States, even when we're senators, we still got to do the mommy, girl, wife stuff, right? So when's the last time you asked yourself, what do you want? Do you even know what you want means? What do I want? The next question is, and this is a little bit deeper, what do I need? What do I need? When's the last time you asked yourself what you need? And the third question is a really important one, which is going to lead me into the points I'm going to give you, and then we're done. The third question is, how am I feeling? When is the last time you stopped and asked yourself, how do I feel? Am I happy? Am I okay? Or I know I'm not okay and I want to tell somebody, but I don't even know how to begin to tell somebody, because I got this mask on every day and I'm put together and people depend on me. Have you taken a look lately at the suicide rates in this country? With our young people, to me, is the most disturbing, because that's the best time of your life, when you're young. But they deal with a whole nother level of stuff that those of us over 40 in this room have no clue about, because we didn't have devices, we didn't have social media. If you bullied when I was in school, the teacher was going to tag you first, and she's going to call your parents. I never forget Bobby Ravoni in high school. This memory stuck with me. I grew up in a very heavily working class Irish Catholic area, and Bobby Ravoni, I went to kindergarten with him, and he was always a piece of work, and he mouthed off at Mr. Combs one time in social studies. And not only did Mr. Combs pick him up by the scruff of his neck and have him against the wall, but then his dad came down the hallway, because they called his dad Mr. Ravoni. Mr. Ravoni was a construction worker, and he was a big guy, really nice guy, but you could hear him walking down the hallway, and we were like, oh, this is not going to be good. And this is 1980s. Mr. Ravoni comes through the classroom doors. It's like everything goes, and then you hear Mrs. Ravoni, who's a devout Catholic, and she's like cursing and crossing herself as she's walking down the hallway. You disgraced this family. And now, I think they had issues. I don't think that this was good what they were doing. But, you all get where I'm going. Different world where parents, your teachers, we had a different structure. We didn't do certain things. We were fearful of stuff. Well, again, that's why we probably got issues now. But the point is, different world. And so I just want you to understand that asking yourself those questions, and guys, there is nothing wrong with admitting that you've got some emotional stuff going on. You need some help, or you need to talk to someone. This is why there's the prevalence of violence that we see. Men and women, am I right, Suzanne, process emotional stress differently. It's our socialization, right? Men are taught to be aggressive when they don't feel well, or they're fearful, or they're upset, or whatever. That's socialization. Women, we're taught to kind of back up, or we cry, or we get all of our girlfriends around, we drink a lot of wine, and we talk, which is kind of good because we talk. And one of the things, if you have boys and you have men in your life that are important, you really need to make sure that they're talking. and that they're emoting because they're struggling. Our boys are being left behind. Another conversation for another day, but you could see the numbers in college. As a professor, we have way more girls than we have young men. And this is happening on campuses all over the country. Boys are kind of dropping out because we're in this emotionally intelligent society, and we've kind of left boys behind. Girls are running circles. So we have to work on the men in our lives and the boys in our lives and help them with this because they're struggling with that cultural shift. It's a shift. Different world than the one I grew up in. Very different. So here are the points I want to give you that relate to what we're talking about today, which is trauma in the workplace. How do we spot it? How do we deal with it? And how do we create spaces where we human beings, and all of us in here, you know, we talked about diversity, equity, inclusion, and all that matters a lot. But I'm hoping for a place that before I leave this earth, we're actually dealing with each other as human beings first. I think we're in a lot of groups. I'm a member of a marginalized group. I hit a couple of those, right? Female, African American, Christian, religious group. You can just keep checking off the boxes. But at the end of the day, I'm more interested in human beings. I'm more interested in who we are as people and how we treat one another and how we entreat one another. And I think if you're going to build a successful business in the 21st century, if you're going to be a successful leader, if this chamber is going to thrive and prosper, it has to meet people at a base level of we're all human beings and we all have certain needs. And those needs, to me, it's Maslow's hierarchy, right? They're very simple, but they're a little more. Maybe they're changed a little bit now because of the social media aspect, and our phones have changed the way we do things, but we all want love. At the end of the day, we all want love. We all want respect. We all want care. We all want to be loved. We want to be accepted. That was talked about. We want to be a part of the group. We want to be in the in crowd. We want to be a part of the team. And at the end of the day, I think we want to go home and feel like I'm doing some good work, I'm accomplishing something. And then I think that last important part is something that we're failing at, frankly, which is the relational part. We are much more transactional now as people than we are relational, and they're very different. You should not be transactional with other human beings. That is a hard and fast rule I have. You're transactional in business. When you're dealing with human beings, you have to be relational. And again, one of the reasons we all feel that things are disconnected, that something's not right, is because everything we do now has to be, I got to get done. That's how we move now, right? It's like it's just always doing. It's always moving. It's always more. It's always, they call it hustle culture. That's what the kids call it, right? And a lot of us in this room are living that way all the time. And even when we take a vacation, we're not taking a vacation. We're not connected anymore because we're transactional. And I want to call you out today and tell you, you need to focus on being relational with your family, with your friends, with your work colleagues. Yes, there are boundaries. Yes, there are all of those things. But at the end of the day, we're all people first. So that's the first thing I want to say to you. Now, here are your 5 kind of nuggets I want to give you from the book. We okay on time over there, Maestro? I'm taking more than 2 minutes. You'll be all right. All right. Because you want me to get this done. All right. We're good friends, as you can tell, right? Suzanne's a sweetheart, and any of you that really know her and that have had the chance to sit with her, or even if you've had to utilize her services, she's amazing. She's very relational. She's very caring. She's a very loyal friend. And I'm excited to be able to do something for you for once, because you're always doing stuff for me. So I want to acknowledge that and say thank you. So the first thing I want you to take away from this notion of stop taking care of everyone but you. If you heard nothing else I say today, stop taking care of everyone but you. Stop being guilty. Stop being ashamed. Stop feeling like you're failing. Stop beating yourself up because you want to sleep, because you want some rest, because you want a break, because you want something for you, because you dared to use your voice to say, honey, this is what I need. What do you need? And then once you ask, listen, okay? First thing is build an EIQ toolkit. What is an EIQ toolkit? It's an emotional intelligence kit. And the way that you build a good EIQ environment in your firm, in your business, in your corporate culture is to do three things. You got to be collaborative. It ain't all about you. This is not a dictatorship. It's not an authoritarian rule. Be collaborative. Engage your people. Listen. Find out what they want. Don't say this is our workplace culture and you fit in or you're out. Because let's be honest, most workplace cultures, particularly corporate workplace cultures, are very patriarchal white male structures. And I have no problem with white males. They're fine. What I'm saying, because I want to be clear, because that's important. What I'm saying is, if you are a white male over 50, all the data says right now you want to go back to the office and work. If you're a female or a person of color under 50, you want to work on Zoom and you want to stay home because you like that flexibility and you don't want the drama of the office politics that you have to navigate as a female or as a person in a marginalized group. Make sense? So collaboration is the first thing. The second thing is compassion. Compassion. Compassion means that, like someone alluded to earlier, if you have a single mom who works for you and she's a great worker and she's got some stuff she's dealing with, she's trying to manage 3 kids on her own, whatever, and she needs a flexible policy, but you've got these rigid rules in place, but you really like the worker, if you're not flexible and you're not compassionate, you're going to lose that worker because she's going to go somewhere else that accommodates the need that she has. So be compassionate as well as collaborative. And then the last part is to create a safe place. The word safe was used earlier, and I think that's a good word. Safe means different things to different people, of course, but by safe it simply means you can be you. If you have braids in your hair, you know about the Crown Act, right? That literally Congress had to pass an act, can you believe this? So that black women could wear their hair in braids. How crazy is that? The Crown Act. Look it up. Google donuts. I'm serious. It's called the Crown Act. Because people were getting let go from their workplaces because of their hair. It happened to a colleague of mine at Holland and Knight. This was, again, in the 90s. She had braids. She was in litigation. The big firms like Boeing and those guys, they didn't like the way she presented. It became a problem. She left. Of course, she sued the firm, got a lot of money, started her own firm, and did well. But this is well before, I'm serious about this, is well before we got to this place. The next takeaway is you need to know the difference between emotional health and mental health because they're different. The mental health is the umbrella of everything that falls under that. Your emotional health goes back to those 3 questions I told you to ask yourself. You gotta check in with you to know how you're doing. Only you can answer that. Your spouse isn't a mind reader. Your best friend isn't a mind reader. Your employer isn't a mind reader. If you got a problem, go to them, tell them, talk to HR. 9 times out of 10, they're gonna work out something with you to accommodate you and help you. So know the difference between the state of your emotional health and your mental well-being, which is that big umbrella which encapsulates everything that makes up who we are, okay? All right, the third one. This is one of my favorites. Don't sweat the haters in life. Everybody's got haters. Everybody's got people who are going to compete with you in the workplace. They're going to be not nice people in the workplace. You're going to have a boss who you really don't like at some point in your career and who doesn't like you. Fact. What you have to learn how to do is to navigate around that in healthy ways that are good for you and good for other people. If you're at a table with a bunch of gossips at the lunch table and they're ragging on everybody every day, when you get up, they start talking about you. So don't hang out with that table. Go to the positivity table. Go be with people like Suzanne who are sunshine and light all the time. I hate it, actually, but it's true. So don't, what I'm saying is, folks, some of this is just life. There are not nice people. There are people who like negativity. There are people who like to be toxic. There are people who just like to be awful. Let them be that. But you can't be affected by that. You have to do you, and you have to keep your eye on the ball. And that requires you to get to this next one, which is number 4, which is get out of your own way. Get out of your own way. What am I saying? Most problems we have in life are caused by us. We don't like to admit that, but it's true. Yes, we've been through trauma. We had good families or not so good families. We had good boyfriends or not so good boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever we had. At the end of the day, You are the only one that can stop you from going where you want to go. That's real. And that requires you to practice healthy self-care, setting boundaries. Don't let people walk all over you. Don't just accept anything. Tell people what you need. Let them know how you feel. My grandmother, 6th grade education, South Carolina girl. My second book, The Woman Code, every woman in here needs to read that book because that was all what she taught me. Smartest woman I'll ever know. And she had a code where she said, know your front row. Who are the people in your life? Who are the people that you listen to? Who are the people that pour into you? And more importantly, you teach people how to treat you. So if you're not liking the way your company culture is, if you're not liking the way your relationship is with colleagues or how you're running your own firm, it's you. It's not them. And it took me a long time to learn. Yes, there are people who do bad things and who are not going to be respectful, good people. But I teach people how to treat me by what I allow them to do to me over and over and over and again. We give people permission. Stop that. Self-care is you setting those healthy boundaries. And last but not least, I can't, Suzanne, this life lesson is in the book, but it's got a curse word in it. So am I allowed to curse? Okay. So, my mother's mortified over here. Listen, I love Jesus, but I cuss a little. So, look, yeah, it's real. All right. So, the last life lesson I want to share with you out of the 21, and I picked these, is number 10. Do no harm, take no shit. Okay. So, what that simply means is this, and I'm going to end where I began. We're in a different space right now. We're operating in a different world than most of the people in this room grew up in. It is a different world, different rules. Civility, respect, all that stuff's kind of gone down the drain a little bit. So what I say is this. One of the things you have to do in the workplace is be clear that you treat people with respect, that you treat people fairly, that you treat people honorably. You really have to practice, and you've got to be disciplined about this, the golden rule. Do no harm to anybody. That should be everyone in this room's mantra. Do no harm to anybody. On the other hand, we're not going to take any either. So what that means is we're adults. We're grown people. We're professionals. We're respectful. So we're not going to let people be in our space who, like I said, are people who are unkind, cruel, unprofessional, disrespectful. So now, that's an HR problem. I get it. But what I'm saying is you create the world you want. You create the space you want. So it's very rare that people who are respectful, kind, good, and decent attract people who aren't those things. It's the law of attraction. So do no harm and don't take crap from people. Self-care, and these are only 5 things I can give you. I can't give it to you all because you got to get the book. But the thing is, what I'm saying to you is self-care is deeper. It's not that surface stuff they've told you. It's not. It's deeper than that. It's about you against you. It's about you taking care of you. It's about you setting healthy boundaries. It's about you loving and liking you and not asking yourself what's wrong with me, but what happened so that you have a better understanding and you can answer those 3 questions. Thank you for having me here today. I enjoyed you. Thank you.